gonna let it shine, this little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine.
Any invitation that you receive to get an opportunity to link with God is an invitation that you should never miss. So it is an invitation that you should make it a point that whatever you are dealing with at a particular point in time, no matter how beautiful, no matter how nice, no matter how enjoyable it is, no matter how horrific, no matter how painful, no matter how disturbing it is, you make it a point that you do not miss that invitation. Precisely because everything that we face in life is not designed by us. So in as much as you might be in a moment that you think is instructive for you not to do any other thing, including not taking an invitation to attend the prayer service, you actually don't know that whatever moment you are facing at that time is brought to you to end up in that prayer service. You know, in the work that we do, we have a lot of advisors and those who control movements and all that. But I said, no, on this one, I rather negotiate the space, but I will end up being there. So I'm very grateful to be part of us this morning, and I'm looking forward to the sermon. I'm looking forward to the prayers. I'm looking forward to, in the main, worshiping, because I'm sure all of us who are in this room have tested the power of worshiping, in as much as we have tested the power of prayer. Let me acknowledge the presence of institutions we have here today, represented by distinguished leaders from these institutions, as I stand firm on the protocol that has been cited by the program director when he was doing introductions. I want to acknowledge the presence of our leadership from SANDF, the presence of our leadership from SAPS. We also have colleagues in our leadership from Telkom. We have the CISO IT group. We have the leadership and our colleagues from Tshwane Municipality. We have members of our Interfaith board. They play a very important role in continuing to ensure that we have solid and enlightened advice in the work that we do as the department, from the platform of spiritual care, but in general, when it comes to ensuring that we discharge our mandate with the care that it deserves. We have the World Bible School amongst us. I've already acknowledged the choir, but we also have artists that have joined us today, the gospel artists that have joined us today. Most importantly, we have the youth fellowship. I do not want to overemphasize the points that I mentioned when I started my input about the spirit of young people. It is my view, and I hold that dear to my heart, that if in the world we are to continue developing and growing, and if in this country we are to sustain the existence of South Africa as a country that continues to lead in SADC and in Africa, the answer is in young people. And if we strengthen young people's organizations, but most importantly, youth fellowships, we would have done more than 85% of the work that we're supposed to do. Now, Program Director, my input this morning is steeped in the the role of spiritual care. And I heard you already starting to advertise, and I was like, now he's reminding me that when I get up there, I must not talk about other things. So don't worry. I will give my input on the basis of the role of spiritual care in the work that we do as the Department of Correctional Services, but generally in the society as a strategic intervention and also a strategic input into how we're supposed to deal with challenges that we face from a social, economic, political, and basically ethical point of view. Now, the strategic framework for the public service has 4 pillars for employee health and wellness, and the 4th pillar addresses wellness management, which talks to the individual's psychosocial, emotional, spiritual, intellectual, and financial wellness. DCS has developed the integrated employee health and wellness, and out of that strategy we have a forum which one of its main objectives is to promote a safe and healthy working environment whereby correctional officials are empowered in financial, spiritual, physical, and psychological well-being. Our workforce is currently faced with a myriad of social challenges, and I would add that also economic challenges. Of course, given the state of our economy, but also the fact that most of our employees come from family backgrounds that demand a lot out of them. And that obviously is informed by the history of this country. So amongst these challenges is the apparent lack of morality, which manifests itself in many ways in our organization. We've had incidents of officials who are suspended or subjected to disciplinary processes due to issues related to misconduct and moral decay. And this misconduct and moral decay is prevalent not only in our work context, but as I've already indicated, in the society in general. As a result, we need to pause and reflect on our overall wellness as a people. In this particular event, special attention then should focus on our spiritual life, hence the need for the prayer service for the head office personnel. We all benefit from a healthy personnel. And when I say we all, I'm not speaking only from a platform of being a manager, the supervisor. I'm not speaking only from, the platform of being the collector. I normally call myself a collector. I pick up the phone and I say, where's that report? Did you do this? Why is this thing not on my desk? Why did this thing happen? Why didn't you do it on time? You are delaying me and all that. And I'm not the only one. I think most of us here, because we have those that work with us and we have those that we supervise. And now imagine an instance where out of the people that you supervise, even if it can be one person, that person is not well. And now in this instance, I'm not talking only about a person calling in sick because they have a health element. I'm talking about a person who's dysfunctionally disposed because of these social problems, because of moral issues, because of economic problems that they face in their lives. Now, what it means is that one of the biggest tasks of us as managers, leaders, but also co-workers, is to also deliver those that we work with from these problems that they face on a daily basis. Now, for them to be able to be delivered by us, it means ourselves, we should have been delivered first. Now, what is the most potent and the most powerful way of delivering a human being from these problems that I have just listed? That is spiritual care. It's the role of different churches, it's the role of different Denominations is the role of different community activists who work more on the ethical and the moral side of the spirit of our nation and communities. Now, this church service is dubbed a church service for head office, but I know through our communications infrastructure, even colleagues that are in the regions, in management areas, in our correctional facilities, community corrections, offices, will be able to get exposed to the message that would have been delivered today. And if that is what is not planned, can we please do that? The white paper on corrections dictates that our department must earn the respect of communities and broader society. And it says we should do this by improving the conduct of our employees, the conduct of the offenders that we take care of, the conduct of people released from our correctional facilities, basically meaning our parolees. Hence, when you go through each and every service delivery platform of the department, you will find the footprint of spiritual care. So whether we organize a prayer service or not, before we start anything, there's always a chaplain there. And the most important speech of the day is the first one, Mos. So even if the commissioner is going to speak, but the chaplain starts first, and at the end there's a closure with a prayer. So those are the benefits that we get exposed to and we enjoy as the department. But my message today, at the center, of course, of talking about spiritual care is, how do we make it a point that we deepen and strengthen the footprint of spiritual care? Okay, I agree that we moved from an ad hoc service to a support service. But how do we define a support service on the scale of intensity in terms of the interventions that we can ensure that prevail in the system? That's number one. Number two, how do we make it a point that that strength of spiritual care that we have as the department links up, networks, and connects with the work that we're supposed to be doing in the communities? I'm saying this because of the example that I've given when I started my input. Of course, it's a journey. We'll get to a point where we have built this infrastructure, and we will go there and hand it over in a plush event. Of course, spiritual care will be there because there will be a chaplain who will do the prayer as I've indicated. But here we have an audience that is a captured audience of young people, more than 900. And the question is, how do we ensure that we link up with their spiritual care programs in that school, directly linking up to spiritual care programs in the community? By the way, after I left that school, I went to a family. It's a child-led family of 3. There's 2 sisters and 1 brother who is around 15 years or so. The sisters are not more than 25 years, both of them. They were living in a house that was a shack with walls. So we moved them out of that house into a shack, because actually a shack was better than the house itself. And the house was renovated, of course, by the work of our employees and the business people that can come through, and most importantly, our parolees and offenders are the ones that offered the labor. Now, they are a very responsible family, because the yard and the house is very clean, very clean. For a child-headed family, I was really taken aback, because there are some families that I visit and I start asking questions from the gate. they were very clean. And even when you converse with them, you can feel that they are, responsible children, but they need a home. They don't necessarily need a house only. What we are providing as the department is a house. We are not providing them with a home. And for them to get a home, in my view, spiritual care should come closer to these young people. By the way, the two sisters already have babies. So you can start to imagine the type of community they live in, and you can start to imagine the type of challenges that they are facing. They are not employed. Their only income is the child grants, and then the orphanage. I think the grants for orphans from the Department of Social Development, which is only received by the brother because he's young. Now we can come with all these interventions that I will call superficial, because they do not touch the soul. But that in itself will not yield the results that we would want to yield. As I indicated when I started my input, that we really need to work on the issues of morality and ethics. Now I will end my input by quoting the late President Nelson Mandela. When we met with religious leaders to launch the moral regeneration movement. And I quote, "Our hopes and dreams at times seem to be overcome by cynicism, self-centeredness, and fear. This spiritual malaise shows itself as a lack of good spirit, as pessimism, or lack of hope and faith. And from it emerges the problems of greed and cruelty, of laziness, of egoism, of personal and family failure. It both helps fuel the problems of crime and corruption and hinders our efforts to deal with them." So, Program Director, at the heart of my message also today is that we need to expand the footprint of spiritual care in moral regeneration and social cohesion programs. And as I indicated that I'm a task minder, and I think you should continue to invite me, because every time you invite me, I drop a task. So the task now is, apart from, as I indicated, strengthening the support side when it comes to our own employees, is how do we now open avenues to shine this light in the communities, for this light to be spoken about from the community's perspective. When I saw the program, that's my last point, by the way. When I saw the program and I saw the name Siyabonga Ngumalo, who's going to sing, I'm like, hey, this one changed his name now. It might not have been a misread on my side, but from the song that he sang, there is a phrase there, and it's powerful when it comes out in Zulu. That phrase, the phrase says, "Ngeke asitele." Yeah, ukutela umuntu. I mean, if you say to a person, "Yakutela," it's beyond abandonment. I don't know what I can call it. And for me, that's a very powerful phrase that was dropped by the rendition that he gave us. And that would be my last word. And before I step off, let me thank the CDC, Memolepo, and also CDC Remand Detention for coming to this service today. I actually expected all the CDCs to be here, so I was told that the invitation was not sent per title. And I think it's a correct thing to do, not to send an invitation or a notice per title, especially if we all are having one title. We are all the children of God. And we need to identify as such. Thank you, Program Director.
Let us rise, ladies and gentlemen. Again, let us give the National Commissioner a very big round of applause. Thank you. You may be seated.